This is News Talk 980 CKNW.
The markets have sort of calmed down a little bit after the Brexit vote, but there is still uncertainty, of course. We have political fallout continuing with an open revolt in Britain's Labour Party against the leader, Jeremy Corbyn. 8 other EU nations are dealing with demands for their own votes. There's that domino effect. And with more on this, I'm joined by Michael Campbell, the guy who predicted Brexit and the demise of the EU well in advance, the host of Money Talks, Canada's #1 rated financial show. You were right, Michael.
Well, I think it's an obvious trend. I think one of the mistakes that people made, and I'm critical of the media in this, is that they didn't see the global trend. They didn't make the connection. Like Donald Trump was a complete surprise to them. The popularity of Bernie Sanders, complete surprise. Mm-hmm. Many didn't know that the Five-Star Movement had just won the Rome elections, or Podemos in Spain had been moving up on the charts, National Front in France. This was global. This was not unique, and I think that's also why it was a big surprise about Donald Trump. And I thought, man, no, there's a bigger picture going on here, and these guys are just fitting into it.
Oh, yeah, you are entirely right about that. So let's talk about the fallout from the Brexit vote. It seems like it sort of went according to plan, everybody having a big rush to safe haven assets.
Yeah, a little late for some, obviously. You wouldn't have got those declines in the markets. But, yeah, I mean, money moves with uncertainty. You know, if people get worried about whatever, it could be their bank, it could be some investment they're in, or if it's for, a country. The U.S. dollar is the #1 sort of safe haven out there. It's been that way very clearly since the credit crisis. And this time around, it was the first time in several years where gold also got a big bid, again, based on the uncertainty that surrounds what's going to happen next.
What surprised you the most about this?
I actually thought that it would be time for people to go, I didn't see this coming. I wonder what I missed. What's really going on? And you know what? With lightning speed, led by the political class, the establishment, media commentariat, it was right back to their pet narratives moments later. I mean, something historical was happening, but you'd never know it from the commentary I heard. I mean, it was business as usual. And I don't know what would constitute a wake-up call. I mean, we have so many things going on in the world that are so profoundly different. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just looking at the report, $11.7 trillion in negative interest bonds. Inconceivable several years ago. Nope. That doesn't seem to have an effect on anyone, and it wasn't Brexit, rather. It was immediate how fast we got sort of the establishment party line came back again. Had a lot of people saying, well, this was a big mistake letting people vote. I mean, I know, democracy's a bitch. But the bias in favor of the status quo, I find astounding. And, the other line you heard is, the Leave It people didn't know what they were voting for. They're stupid. Really? Like all the Remain voters knew what they were doing? It's really was ridiculously biased. And it continues right to this moment. It's things like, the big news that there was a petition to re-vote. Mm-hmm. Well, come on. 16 million people voted to remain. Do you think it's tough to get a few million signatures to say, let's re-vote? We could have done that in our own election. I mean, come on. The Liberals got 29% of the eligible voters, 39% of who voted federally. Well, you then have a pool of, 61% of people who voted who could say, no, I think we need a rematch here. I've just found it incredible.
Well, so if it was very clear to you, and maybe not so much to other people, what do you think the message really was?
I think this is where I think it is different. It isn't politics. You can't get every EU leader, and including Jeremy Corbyn and David Cameron, all supporting this, all support the Remain side. I don't know how you can stretch that this was a political event. It was failed economic policies. And my quick kind of question I've been saying to people, do you really think if the EU had strong economic growth, great job creation, some wage growth, that people are near as vexed with them? Of course not. They've had 7 years of stagnation. You got de facto bankruptcies in Southern Europe, led by Greece. You got youth unemployment that's permanently double digits, as high as 40, 50, 60% in Southern Europe at times. I mean, this is failed economics, irresponsible financial decisions. That has now, the biggest thing I'm worried about is the EU banking system. I think they're in real trouble. And then, and this was the capper, I think, in most of Europe, throw in, I think, what was an elitist, an arrogant, a tone-deaf, and incompetent handling of a very serious refugee crisis. And presto, how are we surprised there's discontentment? Here's another one, by the way, and people are sort of, it's kind of business as usual. Are you kidding? We're changing the currency system in the world right now. Mm-hmm. The euro is not going to be considered an alternative to the U.S. dollars. I don't know where that leads, but come on. not business as usual.
Well, a lot of people have focused on why the vote to leave was bad. What is good about it for Britain?
Well, I think it depends what they do with it. If they want to just retreat back into the same self-styled sort of European bureaucratic high tax model, it's not going to be good for Britain. But, I think what we have to notice is that European approach to the economy, big bureaucracy, 170,000 EU bureaucrats alone, throw in all the bureaucrats in France and Germany and Greece, et cetera, high taxation, real big government intervention. It hasn't worked. We've had 7 years of significant stagnation. Well, if Britain follows that model, I can tell you it's not going to be good for them. But they do have an opportunity that if they put in some pro-growth kind of approach to their economy, then sure, there's going to be disruption for a couple of years. But after that, it can grow. Europe is not going to grow. That model is out, and I'm very sad to see that message isn't through here in Canada, where we have politicians who are dying to do the same model. It's like they can't find Europe on the map. And this is the thing about economics. You can have all your political debates, just like they talked about, and then you miss the big picture. The big picture is economics here.
So the vote was to leave. What happens next?
Well, it's going to be great for you.
Really?
In the media. Because, and really, write it down. Hold me accountable for this.
All right.
The next 4 years are going to be the most volatile since World War II. This is just the beginning. We're unraveling the Euro welfare state. It's going to take a lot of time. But there's going to be bumps. Greece was our first warning, and I thought it was a pretty obvious one. You've got their central bank scrambling right now, but they don't have an approach to the economy that could possibly produce growth. So I think by 2020, this is going to get very obvious. But it's really the volatility we're in for going forward. You've got monster problems in the emerging market debt because it's denominated in U.S. dollars. And as I just said, hey, guess what? The U.S. dollar's going up. It's global. We've seen it in Venezuela, but we don't take notice of it. These are incredibly volatile times.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, we're running out of time here, but what about the average consumer? What does this mean to them?
Okay, I'm worried about things. I think, one of the problems with the EU, they didn't even touch their sovereign debt problem, their entitlement problem, their lack of economic growth, et cetera. I'm worried, as I said, about emerging markets. I'm worried, I guess. That's the point. So I'm very cautious here. I'm very cautious. And even though I think long-term the problems in Europe actually send money into the U.S. and then a byproduct will be Canada, and we'll be happy we're living here. On the short term, there's too much volatility for me.
Rocky and
we'll
interesting.
Get a chance to talk much more about that.
Okay. Rocky and interesting times. Michael Campbell, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk. This is News Talk 980, CKNW.